and get started. How's everybody doing this afternoon? Doing good? You having a good time at conference so far? Did you get anything out of the last session you were in? How many of you were in Pastor Jabin's session right in this room? I heard it was phenomenal. I was in with Pastor Dino. I'd encourage you, we're going to have all of the sessions uploaded to YouTube. So if you don't already or aren't already subscribed to our YouTube, make sure that you do that. You'll be able to get a notification as soon as those update on there. All of the sessions today have been just incredible. We've got some phenomenal leaders, and this session is no exception. I'm so honored to have Pastor Chris Moore, Pastor Noah Herrin with us today in this session talking about social media. But before we go into anything, why don't you guys tell a little bit about yourself, what you do, what God's doing through you, because you guys are both just crushing it, man.
Thanks, Josh.
Amazing.
Can we give it up for Josh real quick?
Come on.
Leading this, preaching today. I was telling him, I was like, Josh, you're setting a standard for hosts right now. And then I was like, actually am preaching, because that was incredible this morning. Thankful for you, friend. You know, my name's Chris Moore. I'm a next-gen pastor at a church in Phoenix, Arizona, the Valley of the Suns. Let's go Suns in 4, come on. And now it might be 6, but anyways, we keep that Suns in 4 energy. You know, I lead a youth pastor Facebook community called the Youth Pastor Roundtable. And it started as a Zoom call with like 15, 25 guys. You were on there. And in fact, Noah was on there the very first week we did it, pre-COVID. And I'm going to tell a little bit more of that story. But that call went from 15 people to over 500. We couldn't meet on Zoom anymore. And then over 2,000 and now 9,400 youth pastors from 70 different countries. And God gave us a vision to reach 1 million kids for Jesus. So we're going for it. And we want to inspire and equip youth pastors to be the most incredible youth pastors and reach kids through online. So that's a little bit what God did in this season. So this is Noah, and he's the best. And I'll do an intro for you, and I'll just let you go.
Hey guys, my name's Noah, and it's such an honor to be at Love is Red conference. I'm really inspired by how cool of a dad Josh is. My wife and I just found out that recently that we're expecting our first child. And so, amazing preacher, but I want to be a dad like Josh is. So our story really quick is I'm 26. I gave my life to Jesus when I was 21 and started a Bible study with some friends in college. God really breathed on it, and within a couple of weeks, we had over 100 college students coming, and one of my friends was like, hey man, I think you're gonna have to preach tonight. And I was like, I think you're gonna have to preach tonight. And so started preaching YouTube sermons from other pastors, Pastor Jabin, Pastor Kevin, people like that, and God just used it anyways, and led a college ministry of about 600 college students for the last 5 years. Now, my wife and I are doing evangelism. We work with churches specifically in the young adult space, trying to raise up leaders and young adult ministry at local churches. And so that's what we do. We love it. Social media has been a big part of our ministry, and just honored to be with you guys for real.
Yeah, for sure, man. Both of these guys are just phenomenal leaders. I'm thankful to just know you guys, get to call you guys friends. It's an honor. And Chris, you guys are both master networkers, helping people meet. And Chris, I met so many people because of your youth pastor thing, what you're doing, man. It's making a difference in the lives of so many, especially during COVID when we just need friends. How many of you can say that? We just need people who are doing the same thing. We need community. We need collaboration. And both of you guys have helped even me in that. So I'm excited to talk about social media because I wanted the two of you to talk to this and speak to this because I feel like you both utilize it so well. And you steward your platform so well with the goal in mind of reaching students and reaching people. Would you take a minute, both of you, and just speak to the importance of social media and reaching younger generations and reaching college students, reaching high school students?
That's awesome. I'll go first on this one. You can go first next one. You know, we created a free PDF. So let me say this. I'm going to give away something free here today. If you go to my Instagram, @8more, it's called Your New Front Door. And it's basically just a full guide on how to create a great first impression because kids are deciding whether to come to your church or not before they come to your building. They're deciding whether they're going to visit. They're going to decide whether it's weird, whatever it is, based on your social media. Your front door has moved away from your front door. It's now on Instagram. And we want to help you make great first impressions. So if you go to @8more, the number 8, MORE, click the link in the bio. There's a full free PDF. I was like, I don't have enough time. I'm not gonna have enough time. We created a masterclass. It's like 6 hours to help people figure this out. But this will just be like a taste to help you just get right off the ground. So I would say, like, what's the see importance, people are making decisions whether or not they're going to come to your youth ministry before they come to your youth ministry. And you can make a great first impression online.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think, man, it's where the people are, right? It's where our students are. It's where they spend their time, more importantly, which, man, the screen time app is the most convicting app on your iPhone. That little number popped up like the first or second week of quarantine, and I was like, tell the truth and shame the devil. I'm about to throw this phone away. Like, I had no idea how much time I was spending on here. The reason why it matters to me is the idea of time. One of my favorite definitions of worship is anything that you do for the glory of God while actively paying attention to God. So a huge part of worshiping God is what you do with your time, how you spend your time. And so these students are choosing to spend their time online. And so it's not just a mental health thing when we talk about social media and how much time is being spent. It's literally a spiritual thing. And so I feel like as followers of Jesus, if we're seeing people choose to spend their time in a place that is not gonna matter in the next life, right? We're called to go there and redirect the attention back to where it belongs. It's a part of how we get people to meet Jesus. It doesn't, like Chris is talking about, your front door is social media, and that is like never been more real, but it's also like people are worshiping on social media. They just might not know it. And so we got to make sure that we see it as like this huge opportunity to redirect our time.
Yeah, that is so good. Both of those points. And I think as you start to realize, because that's statistically, like that's not just Chris's opinion, that's like statistically proven that it is your new front door. And so if you aren't intentional with it, then you're missing out on an opportunity to go ahead and reach people that otherwise may never come to your church, reach students that otherwise may not be interested in your church, because they can kind of see where the party's at. I want to jump right into, because you guys have utilized it so well, what are some things that you've seen that have worked for you? Chris, I know you have a whole master course on it, which is crazy. It's phenomenal. But what a helpful resource. But what are just some practical things?
So everything that my wife and I share on social media, we try to think about it from, we like ask a couple questions. So, and we actually did these questions on Chris's roundtable, which was awesome. So is it helpful, first and foremost? It's like, what I'm sharing actually helpful to somebody? Because we found that people who know us in person will follow us on social media because they know us and because they're nice people. But if we want to reach more than just the people who know us, we've got to offer something. We've got to bring something to the table. Chris, again, is a genius at this. Obviously, he started this by giving you something, which is brilliant. Helpful. Am I being helpful? Is this something that is different? Is another thing that we try to ask. Social media has never been more used, and it's also never been more of like the same kind of content. Like, anyone ever find yourself, you're just like scrolling, and like there's this saying that we use, like, we want to stop the scroll. We want to like post content that is unique and makes people stop for a second, because then they'll actually engage with what we're sharing. So is it helpful? Is it different? And is it shareable? You guys know about the social media algorithm that is like weighted the most. And so we want to post stuff that someone reads and then they desire to share it. And then finally, in our context today, the last question that we ask is this really biblical? Like, is this really truly biblical, or is this like Twitter theology, which there's a difference between Twitter theology and real theology. And so we want to make sure that, like this statement might get more retweets. Not that many people are on Twitter, maybe. This statement might get more shares on Instagram, but this statement is the truth, and it's still gonna be shareable, and it's still different, and we're still packaging it. Let's choose that route so that it doesn't lead to more questions for students later. Does that make sense?
Yeah, dude, that's incredible. Yeah, I would also say, for me, one of the things that worked for us was when we integrated social media into our discipleship. So we call our student leaders influencers. And I know it's funny because some of y'all just got triggered. You're thinking about someone who's tried to sell you essential oils, right? Or multi-level marketing company, right? You know these people, they want to like sign you up for something, to sell something, to make them money. We all have had like negative experiences with influencers. But I lead a first-time guest crew at my youth ministry, and we have students come in all the time who are unchurched. And one kid came in and he was like, my favorite question to ask these students is, I say, what stood out to you tonight? And this kid said, my favorite part of the night was the karaoke. I was like, okay, we all know that it's not karaoke, it's worship, right? We're giving praise to God. This isn't karaoke, but we're doing ministry in a post-Christian culture that doesn't understand what a missionary is and what they do. So I was trying to explain, what is a missionary? What do they do? And they were like, well, it kind of sounds like an influencer, like they're leading people to something, right? But I mean, we have the greatest product that's ever existed, amen? We have life change. We have the most essential of oils, right? We got the Holy Ghost or the Woly Ghost, depending on what platform you're on. We have the Holy Spirit. We have the greatest message that's ever existed. And so when we integrated social media into our discipleship, and it wasn't about like, comment, share so that we get more clout. It was about like, comments, and share so we can trigger the social media algorithm. All of a sudden, our posts started getting thousands of reaches. We added 1,000 followers in 10 weeks on Instagram. We were reaching 28,000 kids a week. And then we had a girl named Claire walk onto our campus. She said, I saw a friend post about you guys. And I said, I have to be there. And I met her dad. He was walking her to and from the church. I was like, okay, what's going on? And it was kind of odd. And I introduced myself to him. And he says, hey, I just want to tell you, second week of quarantine, my daughter was sexually assaulted by one of her best friends. She lost everyone in her life. And your youth ministry saved my daughter's life. I realized how important this is. You know, it's like if every one of you grab your phone right now. Every person grab your phone. If you grab your phone, you realize, man, you have a light app on your phone, right? Turn on your light, just real quick. It's that simple, whether or not you decide this is going to be a tool used for Jesus or not. It's like, this is such a powerful tool, and every one of your students can be a light and be influencers. So I'd say the most powerful thing we learned was when we put the tools and we inspired our students not to like, comment, share based upon preference, but based upon discipleship and mission. All of a sudden we had posts that get 600 likes and thousands of views. And we talk about this in our course. It's called the Influencers Program because it's about discipleship. We saw a youth ministry that had 7 kids have an Instagram reach of over 1,000. He had 5 first-time guests the next week. All of a sudden we realized every church in here has something that Hillsong doesn't have, VU doesn't have, that Life Church doesn't have. You have your students, which is a gift from God. And when you inspire them and they get a hold of it, man, it works because the algorithm actually works in the church's favor when the church uses discipleship. I would say that's what works. That was a long answer.
No, that was phenomenal. What are some other things practically? So you mentioned algorithm, and some people are maybe like, what is an algorithm? What does that look like? And others might be like, okay, does that look different on Twitter? Do you approach Twitter different than Instagram and Instagram different from TikTok? Maybe speak practically to each one of those, and if you have a strategy for each one, or you just kind of do all the same?
For sure. Well, I start with the end in mind, right? So it's like, I want students to walk into my building. Like I do youth ministry on 43rd and Thunderbird in Phoenix, Arizona, 85203. That's my zip code. That's where I'm living. And I want to reach those kids at Greenway High School, Cactus High School. Those are my schools. So I want to be in a place that has localized traffic. Let me explain it. My favorite coffee shop in my city is called Lux. It's so cool. There's no signs. It's always packed. People in there are so weird. You know these coffee shops, you're like, man, this is just weird, but incredible coffee. Like, I love this place. I go there all the time. And it's like, unless you know about it, it could be the most incredible place, right? It's the most incredible place. But if you don't know about it, you don't know about it. And if you're on platforms like YouTube, I'm telling you, YouTube's a burning building for youth ministries. Why? Because no one's getting on saying, youth group in Canton, puts the date. It's like when you start putting your content in places where people are and that's shareable, it's like this. Every one of you knows what Starbucks is and what they do. Why? Because it's on a traffic. It makes sense. You know where it is. You know what it does. Instagram's like that. TikTok is more like an interstate. It goes viral, it gets crazy, you can get a lot of views, but it won't necessarily translate to people walking into your building. So if you want to be like, hey, I want a large online ministry, then cool, like build out YouTube, build out TikTok. If you want kids from your community to come to your campus, you should be putting your energy where you're going to have the most localized traffic, which is Instagram. So That's just a piece. Another one, just real quick, and I'll let Noah do this, group chat culture. Now, how many people here are over the age of 30? Over the age of 30, just real quick. Okay, you're looking at all the millennials, okay, here we are. And basically, this is the thing. Millennials and older consume content. We look at social media like media. Gen Z and younger looks at it like social media, right? Older looks at it like media, so we're there to consume. Younger generations are there to interact and engage and know each other. There's heavy group chat culture and meme culture. So what you have to understand is if you have a group chat with your student leaders and you click the share button into your student leader group chat that you've been discipling kids in, then all of a sudden your post can start instantly getting traction because you discipled your people to interact with it. Group chats are so important. Have 10. Every small group should be a group chat. Have it with the guys, have it with the girls so that you can send your stream, you could send your content to a giant group of people. And as soon as you do it, that's when your content starts hitting those algorithms and getting sent out to thousands of people. Group chats. That's what I said.
So good. I know that most of you in here, you're either in full-time ministry or you have some sort of full-time job, and social media can feel like an extra full-time job with the amount of content that is being produced at a high level by different churches that maybe you follow or different ministries that you're a part of. And so time management is something that my wife and I are very acutely aware of with how much we're spending on social media, because we also believe that social media is this great tool that we get to use, but very easily it can start using us, even as the leaders who are like trying to go about it the right way. And so something that we've used that's really practical is this website called Hootsuite, which is like a content scheduling platform. So like we spend a couple hours at the beginning of the week because we care about what we're posting like that much. We want it to be good. We want it to be posted at the right times. And I guess we could talk about that a little bit too. Like different platforms tend to have better times to post where your engagement will go up. For instance, Twitter is a lot of millennials, Gen X, boomers. That's kind of where they congregate. And so if you're going to be on Twitter, like post first thing in the morning because your neighbor's going to read it while he drinks his coffee at 7 a.m. But if you're going to be posting on Instagram at 7 a.m., it's going to be like you, yourself, and I liking that picture because your students are not going to be engaging. So what we do is we take the content we're going to use. We recycle things like sermons, and you can make one 1-minute sermon clip into like 10 different pieces of content if you cut it up right, if you post it at the right times. TikTok is like, hey, you could pretty much post this anytime between like 11 o'clock in the morning and like 6 o'clock at dinner time, and it's just gonna get shot into this cannon of virality and like good luck, who knows? But with Instagram, we always try to post a little bit after meal times. So, a little bit after lunch would be fine. We found that the best engagement with students and young people is a little bit after dinner time, like around 8 o'clock, 8:30. Maybe you've noticed this before. A lot of influencers, content creators tend to post at that time because they know, hey, people are winding down. This is when people are spending time on their phone. Like we want to be shooting for the greatest return on investment with our pieces of content. So just kind of learning, keeping track of your analytics, like, hey, when are my students interacting, but also like making sure that if someone is interacting with your stuff, like you're interacting back, like you're not like this robot who just puts out content, like you're a person, like this is your ministry, this is a tool to get people into your door, like Chris is saying. Just keeping that in mind is huge.
For sure, that's so good. I love that you said about not being a social media robot. That was me for years. And I would always wonder, why don't people engage with stuff that I post or that we post? And it was because we were never engaging back. I think that's such a huge thing with students. If you aren't going to comment back, they're going to stop looking and stop being interested in your stuff. So with every tool that can be used as a positive, right, there's tensions with those tools. And with social media, I wanted to ask you guys this question because this is question that I've gotten a lot. And so I think it's important that we speak to. How do you manage the tensions of kingdom promotion versus self-promotion? Have you sensed those tensions, and how do you manage them?
Yeah. This is something that, like, full transparency, I wrestle with on like a daily basis because my full-time job is traveling and preaching at churches and youth groups. And so, I'll get tagged in the post that like I'm going to preach, and they're hoping that I'll reshare it. But then when I reshare it, I'm like, am I doing this because I want my friends to see I'm preaching at another place? Or am I doing this because I want these students that maybe follow me to show up to this youth group? And I think that the lines can really, really get blurred, even inside your own heart. Motives, which I know is we're going to talk about in a second. Motives are so important, but can even hide like from yourself sometimes your motives. So my wife and I, we set up kind of an accountability group of people in our lives, not just people who are our age, but people who are older than us, who have access to our social media accounts, who they've been given full permission, not just to like root us on, but full permission to be like, hey man, I've noticed that like a lot of your stuff is about you, or a lot of your stuff is about like what you're doing. I think like this is not a good sign. My heart is broken in the past like year and a half, 2 years, because accountability has always been preached from stages. But I feel like, and hear my heart in this, I say this as like humbly as possible. I feel like we are really good at keeping people accountable on a local level, but we have a harder time keeping church leaders accountable who are like really talented leaders in certain spheres, because it's like, they're so talented, they're reaching people for God. I know that looks weird that they're doing that, or that they're like being self-promoting, but we'll just give it a slide because they're a really talented leader. Like we've got to fight that, like in our lives and other people's lives. Like we've got to give people the right to call us out, to keep us accountable, because they are doing the most loving thing for us. And so I would say start with that. Like have a couple people on your team who are like, yo, let's figure out what is too much, what is too little, because I think that it's probably different for every context, but the people who are closest to you are going to be able to call it out right away when they see it's gone too far. So
that's awesome. That was incredible. So double down on that. I would add that starting with who you're serving online is very important. Now, when we started Youth Pastor Roundtable, we had 15 guys on. When it launched out of our youth conference, and we had like 100 youth pastors at it, that it was at a setting just like this. And then as soon as quarantine happened, y'all remember the first quarantine when everybody's like, this can be like a month, right? You remember this?
15 days to slow the spread.
Yeah, 15 days to slow the spread. And then, we just really felt like an overwhelming sense to be called to answer the call of faithfulness. That if God brought them to us, we were going to be faithful to them. And that's why our social media strategies aren't get rich quick. They're discipleship. They're gritty. It's like, we weren't just like, I started praying, God, send us to the nations. And God's like, you have kids in your youth group right now you don't even talk to. Like, when was the last time you called them? Like, when was the last time you invested in them? So we start with the people that we're called to be faithful to. So first off, we were called faithful to youth pastors. And so we started a Zoom call, and it started with 15, 25, 35, 45, and then it went back down to 15. You remember when people stopped watching your Zooms, stopped getting on your streams, and you're like, oh God, you've abandoned me. God, you're not there for me anymore. And I remember feeling that, and I remember probably multiple times thinking about quitting. I was like, man, we gotta stop. This just isn't worth it. 25 guys just keep showing up. And then we had an 8th grade girl drink an entire bottle of hydrogen peroxide. And then we woke up and we realized kids are not coming to us. They're not looking for our live streams. They're not looking for us. We have to go to them. Yeah. And then all of a sudden I couldn't sleep at night. I was like, we have to be found faithful to the kids God's brought us and to the kids in our community. And I started losing sleep over this. And so then we developed this 9-step, 4-phase system to reach a kid online. And then we started talking about this system on these live streams. And all of a sudden, that live stream that Noah was a part of the first week and Josh was a part of went from 15 to 9,000 because we were just found faithful. Yeah. And if I was to look at you, I would say the same thing. Who has God brought to your church already that you're not being found faithful to? How can you serve them? How can you reach them? How can you equip them? And then when you start being found faithful, it's the parable of the talents, right? It's like, oh, hey, God said, hey, if you're found faithful with just the few you have, I can trust you with more. And the same thing on social media. If you can be found faithful. So kingdom promotion, self-promotion, start with man, am I just faithful? Am I faithful to serve those? And when you do, man, those doors just open for you.
I love that. I love what you said about making it about discipleship for students, because what you're doing is a lot of times as youth pastors or young adult pastors, we're tempted to preach at our students to invite their friends to church, but we aren't empowering them with tools to make church look appealing to their friends. And I think what you're doing is making it look appealing because you understand that is the front door. I feel like I mentioned before, you've been so intentional with that and stewarded that so well. That's why it grew to 9,000. I remember being a part of the beginning of it, being like, this guy is like, he's got a vision, and when he pitches his vision, it's like a marketing advertisement. I'm like, who doesn't love this guy? But then he added me to a couple group chats with youth pastors, so I wasn't sure whether to be excited or frustrated. You know what I mean? I'm just like, I'm a millennial. Like, this isn't my thing. But I saw the engagement that you were getting on those, and then I found myself even starting to like hit the like thing every once in a while, and then I found myself starting to reply. And so I think there's something about it where if we really care about the people that we're leading and we want to influence them in their world, then we have to take this seriously. And that's one of the things that I've learned from both of you that I'm so grateful for, even from afar. And so you mentioned motives. Let's go there real quick, and then hopefully we have a few minutes to bounce it around if there are any questions. But how do you guys keep your motives pure with it? And I know you mentioned accountability and some of those things, but how do you make sure that you stay healthy with it? How do you keep your motives pure? Is there a way that you're maybe to not make it all about you, maybe celebrating others? What does that look like for you?
Yeah. Well, man, first off, my wife has full access to everything. That's just like base level, makes sense. And then, honestly, a lot of personal accountability, because at the end of the day, no one knows, what Jabin talked about earlier was just like so incredible about having self-awareness. And I think those are the great heart works that happen behind the scenes that no one sees, right? No one sees like the moments where you're like, man, I want the clout, or I want this person to like this thing or follow me. And those are the hard moments that you have with God, and having your wife and, especially involved in that is so beneficial. And if you're single in here, get you a friend who can wound you and get real with you. That will bless you.
Do you guys know this guy, this kind of crazy dude named Bob Goff? Have you guys heard of this guy? I love Bob Goff, and my wife, she's obsessed with Bob Goff, and we've been in conferences like this where we've got to hear him speak. And every time I walk away and I'm like, man, he's so different, in the best way possible. I wish that there was a word to describe Bob Goff. And the more I followed Bob Goff's ministry, I think he is just the most passionate celebrator of others that I've ever seen. He literally is a full-time celebrator of others. That's his job. And it's become his ministry and his life. And so I think that is twofold. One, when you celebrate others, it brings you more success in whatever you're doing, in your ministry, in your life, whatever. But I also think it is a built-in heart check for you to make it about the right thing, other people, helping other people win. And so, I don't know. We're trying to find ways. We just started doing this thing on our social media where we're hey, once a week, we're going to take the time to genuinely celebrate somebody that maybe hasn't been celebrated publicly in a while. And so my wife and I talk about it, we think about it, and then we're blasting them on our social media, hey, these are the amazing things that this guy is doing. And it's not just something that we're doing to try to appear whatever way. It's we want them to get recognition, but it's also this built-in weekly safeguard for our hearts of this is not our platform to begin with. This is the Lord's. And what would the Lord do with it? He would celebrate other people. He would root other people on. And we found that our heart has become more like the Lord's, and like Bob Goff's in the process. And we're hoping it will get more and more like that. So
that's awesome. You got anything to add, Chris? Or?
Well, I went first, but I would just double down on what Snow said. Ditto.
Yeah, I think that's so good. I think you guys do such a great job of that, because what I see through your platforms is not only what you're doing, I'm aware of what you're doing, but you're also celebrating your friends in ministry. You're always shining a light on what other guys are doing and what they do well. And I think that's so special. That's why I wanted to ask you guys that question for sure, because I think you guys embody it really well. I want to open it up to other questions. I don't want to just leave it at what we decided to discuss, but I want to open it up to other questions that you guys might have about social media. And so we're going to bounce it around. If you have a question, raise your hand and we'll come find it.
Thank you so much for all of that wisdom. Question for Chris. When you have your influencers go out, is there any look you get on them for, let's say they're preaching, they're sharing the content you put out, but let's say they have other inappropriate content or in their bios or whatever, do you kind of say like, hey, like you're sending this out, but like you're also like putting like your whole thing is like that?
One of my favorite things about the influencer program is it created the means for us to have those conversations. It's like we actually kicked a girl out. We talked to her and we said, hey, we know you're sleeping with your boyfriend. All this stuff came out. The way you posted on TikTok was just really inappropriate. And we believe you're more than that. We believe there's a call in your life to make a difference. And so we didn't just come at it like, hey, you're wrong, you're sinful. But actually, we had a really amazing God talk with her because of it. And then she broke up with her boyfriend. She started changing the way she posted because she knew that her witness was connected to her life online. So it actually created more means of discipleship for us than we ever thought possible. So that was one of the cool benefits of what we did. For sure.
So I didn't hear you guys talk about Facebook at all. Is that like old? Like for the people who are the over 30 group, is that like you guys don't use Facebook, or it's just like my Instagram just posts it to Facebook and that's kind of it? Or like is that?
For students, this is one of the best practices on Facebook is parent Facebook groups. Your parents can become your greatest cheerleaders and champions of your ministry. So having a group, like you can just create a group, make it your youth ministry group. You can post events, times, all those different things. Parents love seeing their kids. Now, your kids probably aren't going to be on Facebook, but you can reach parents there. And it's an incredible, powerful tool for parents. So, yeah. Ditto.
So for content-wise and content things that you guys put out, what are the things that you guys see yourselves do pretty regularly, like putting out content? And then what are some things that maybe are working the best right now versus maybe some things you've tried that didn't work so well?
I think on Instagram primarily, like switching up the types of content, not only is it like, does it boost the algorithm? Like a second ago, I talked about like different content. I just think when COVID hit, everyone realized that the people who weren't active on social media were like, we got to get active. And it was almost like an overcompensation of content of just like, oh my gosh, like, what do I, like, it was like stressing me out. I was like, man, people are posting like 2 times a day. Like, that's against the rules, like, it was just like so much content. And so now there's so much great content on there. Like, let's just face it, I'm never going to be able to produce the level of content that Elevation Youth is producing right now. Like, their team is amazing, like phenomenal. Like, I've got friends over there and they're just like in a lab creating like student content to take over the world. Well, I'm not going to be able to do that with like my iPhone in my house. But what I can do is I can make sure that the content that I'm making is different, and I can make sure that it's helpful, and I can make sure that it's something that's coming across authentic, and it's going to be something that a student resonates with. The demographic that we try to reach is like that 16 to like 24-year-old is kind of like who my wife and I are drilling in on. And we've noticed that many of them, they don't actually, their biblical literacy comes strictly from podcasts, YouTube videos, stuff like that. And so we're trying to help teach quiet time stuff. Like, we're trying to be real practical. Hey, this is what our quiet time looks like. Hey, this is like how we're diving into God's word. And a student's seeing that and they're like, man, I'm not feeling intimacy with Jesus. And it's not to knock the podcast or the YouTube video, but we weren't designed to go off of someone else's time with the Lord, right? So we're trying to help these students learn how to do that on their own. And we found that, yeah, that's not like the really cool video that Elevation is doing, and I'm so thankful for that really cool video, but it's just a niche that we found, and we're just drilling into. And I think that's something that I would just say is like, everyone has a niche. Everyone has something that they can do really well. And if you'll just drill into it and be consistent with it, like not only does social media reward it, but I think the Lord rewards it. I think people will be drawn to your content and they'll start sharing it. And it's just this awesome cycle. So
I would add this, that when you look at your social media, a best practice, I'd write this down. This is worth the price of admission. You're looking to be relational, not promotional. Because every time a kid sees an ad, they just swipe by. But when they see something that's attractive, that's like, hey, that's one of my friends. That's pictures of students. I'll say this, a picture of your students will always do better than a graphic. So post pictures of smiling people. This is what we found. A picture of 2 smiling people will always do better than a graphic. 3 smiling people will do better than that. 4 smiling people who look happy online are so attractive for people, and they get likes. Why? Because every one of your students wants to see themselves smiling on your Instagram. And when you do, they love to share it. They love to engage with it. And then your stories can be more promotional. Why? Because your promotion doesn't have to sit on your grid for weeks at a time. You could just post it a couple days and it disappears. I'll also help you with this. Bridge content. You need to start creating bridge content. You write this down, bridge content. This is very important. These are your jabs to your punch. Like if you're fighting, you're like wearing someone down so you can get to that uppercut and knock them out. Now your jabs are this, memes. So simple. Just screenshot one, share one, and post it. Like I started doing this in our Youth Pastor Roundtable Facebook group. And if you're not in that group, you should join, because we do free weekly live streams with some of the nation's leading voices in youth ministry. Simply put, Youth Pastor Roundtable on Facebook group. But the reason why I started sharing memes in there was because people were liking it and they laugh at it. And we can use humor. So like if I were just to give you just a quick timeline, I'd be like TikTok or Meme Monday. There's your Monday post every Monday forever. TikTok Tuesday, there's your Tuesday post for every week ever. Worship Wednesday, these are the things you got coming up. Thursday's throwbacks. Kids love nostalgia. They love to see old pictures from camp, a picture of you getting roasted. It's like Flashback Friday, whatever it is. And then the day you post, you have your youth ministry, have a post go up before you're done with your sermon. That way, when you're preaching, you're like, man, God wants to meet you in your mental health. You're not alone. And if that resonated with you tonight, we post it on Instagram, and you can help someone. If you go to our youth page right now, hit like, comment, share, not so we get more likes, so that you could help someone. All of a sudden, you turn the whole room into missionaries, and that's called a content stack. And then a content drive is then when you share that into group chats, and then other people engage and help your engagement. So that would just be something really quickly like that you could do.
You're like a machine. I love it. It's like a top one of those things that you just turn the thing and it just spins. It's like Chris, like you just ask him a question, just cue him up. Are there any other questions? Yeah, I see one in the back. We have time for one more, so we'll take this one and then.
Later. All right. How do you guys celebrate your team on social media? If you guys do, are there different ways that you can celebrate your team using that?
First off, we have a group chat that just is one of our favorite things. It's memes, it's fun, and we also have a Facebook community where our Facebook group just for our leaders. I know we have to tell like our Gen Z kids, and they're like, really, I have to get a Facebook? My mom's on Facebook. I'm like, yeah, this is where our community happens. So I'd find ways to do it privately, because publicly, basically what we've created is, our Instagram is our front door. Now, we have a secondary page, a spam account. Do you guys know what spam accounts are? If you don't, just let me quickly explain it. It's a secondary account that's like your living room. If your Instagram's your front door, then your spam account's your living room. You're inviting people in, they see the mess, it's nasty, gritty, doesn't look cool. We have different places where we do different things. Our Instagram is a first impression, and it's going to make the great first impression. Our spam account is relational, gritty, stupid, made by students, but it's our training ground so that we can raise up young people who understand the vision and mission of online. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it probably just depends like what the purpose of or like what the end goal of your social media account is. You know, like some people in the room, like you are leading a ministry, and so you're gonna want like your social media to be more evangelistic. So you would follow the suit that like Chris is talking about, because you want the new student to click on your Instagram and not see like your whole team and like bios about the team, but you kind of want to see like this fun, engaged, smiling face feed. Whereas if you're like running a personal page and you're just wanting to be like a light for Jesus, then you would be like celebrating people more and talking about people who are doing different things. So I think it really probably just depends on like what the end goal is for the account that you're running. But
Yeah, that's great. Can we hear it for these guys? That was amazing. Phenomenal. Thank you both so much. So much wisdom, so much great stuff on social media. If you didn't go to that link, I would encourage you to download that, because I'm about to do the same thing, and it'll be helpful to you.